Hello everybody, John Craig here with Performance Plus Tennis. In today's lesson, we're going to cover the forehand. And no doubt that the forehand is the one shot in tennis that has changed more than anything else in tennis in the last 20 years. And we see so many different styles, and the evolution of the forehand is so fascinating. And we're going to look at that forehand, we're going to look at variations of it, and we're going to help you also figure out what is the ideal way for you to discover the best forehand for you to play with. All that and more in today's lesson. So by today's standards, I really think of my forehand as being really simple in many ways. It really doesn't have any unusual nuances or funny movements, wibble wobbles, wrist flicks, anything like that in it. So I'm going to hit a couple of my regular forehands, just hit my forehand. I'm not going to really think about it. I'm just going to play my forehand just the way I know I play it. Very simple. And this evolved from me learning in the 70s where the swings were even simpler. And I didn't even have the loop in my forehand at that time. Okay? So that's my forehand. Really simple and clean. Not a lot of wrist movement, not a lot of angle changes in the racket. I can spin the ball, I can do a lot of different things with it. But we don't see forehands in the tour like that at all anymore. We're seeing forehands with very different movements. And if we take like Kachanov, for example, and Tommy Paul, who's our new US #1, we see the racket rises and we see a floating wrist. So we see a racket that rises and we see a floating wrist. And this allows to get a lot more movement into the ball. And actually, I've never even tried this before, but I'm gonna have a little fun with it and see if I can actually lift it high and give it a go, okay? Lift it high and give it a go. That's one variation. Another variation of the best forehand on tour this year in 2024 is Jannik Sinner. And Jannik Sinner's forehand, he takes it back and the strings actually face the back fence. And then he has this tremendous lag in it and then it releases and squares up on the ball. I'm going to try that now and see if I can actually do that forehand. Interesting. Strings facing back and whack it through. It's pretty hard to do actually, but it's kind of fun to try all these variations. Very difficult for me to do, so different, but having fun with it. Got it. Okay, so this is difficult because in order to hit the forehand this way, you have to skillfully get the racket strings from facing straight back to straight forward. And it takes tremendous timing to do that. And if you're not playing all the time and you're a recreational player playing a couple times a week, very difficult to develop that movement, okay? So I really wouldn't recommend it. Now, another variation that we see on the forehand that I recall seeing from Andy Roddick is that when you prepare, the racket faces more forward. So with Roger Federer, the racket was more above the hand. Even with Nadal, more above the hand. But with Roddick, he was kind of one of the first ones who actually pointed the tip of the racket at the ball and then hit it. I actually like that. Okay? I can actually generate pretty good racket speed on that. Ooh, I love that one. Okay? And what happens on this particular technique is that when you make your move to play the ball, your shoulder, your whole arm is what would be supinated. And then when you come back, it rotates around. So it creates more of a lag effect. So you're here, and then when you bring it back and you rotate, right there is this tremendous lag. And the shoulder rotates and puts it in a position with a great stretch in there. And you can really accelerate through the ball. So that, if you're looking to improve the performance of your forehand and you want to try something that's relatively simple, you could try this. I'll hit a few more. Point it forward, then play it. Point it forward, then play it. Point it forward, then play it. So for me, that's probably the easiest adjustment I could make on my forehand to generate more lag and more power on the forehand without making my stroke very complicated. I'm simply going from where my natural position is here to actually here. So when I make my move, the shoulder's going to rotate back, the racket's going to rotate around the hand and then catch up. And that's something you could try, okay? So that would be a variation that might work for you, but I think it's complicated if you have a sort of a traditional type of a forehand. And another notable variation on the forehand is what Nadal has done his whole career, and that's hit what we call the variation forehand or the reverse forehand or the buggy whip forehand. So all those three names are sort of interchangeable. And he combined that usually with an open stance, and he had a semi-western grip. So I'm gonna hit a few of those and see if I can get that whip up on the ball here that he would get so much. Oh, I did a classic there, didn't I? So up over the top. And this is very useful when the ball's high and you want to get a lot of spin on it. Ball's up high, I can spin over the top of the head here, whip it around, get a lot of spin. And that's the shot right there. Give another one, buggy whip here. The other time a buggy whip is useful is when the ball's low and wide. Like if I get pulled out wide, I could do a buggy whip right here and play it this way. Okay. And there we go, another one. And over the top. And this also happens naturally if you're late on the ball too. If I'm a little late, naturally I'll go up and out versus around the shoulders. So you can use that variation forehand as an option as well. I wouldn't use it all the time, but it's a way that you can play balls that are a little late, a little further away from you, or you want to get a lot more spin on the ball. So you might be thinking at this point, gosh, what should I do? What's my style? What kind of things should I be trying to do to make my forehand the best it can be? Now just remember, the ball doesn't know what your style is. It doesn't know if you're a pro or an amateur. It doesn't know anything. It knows the speed of the racket, the angle of the racket, and the path of the racket at that instant of contact. And how you get there is your own style. But if you're trying to do things that are complicated and difficult, then that contact point is going to be inconsistent. And then of course your shots are going to be inconsistent as well. So I think we just have to go back to what are the fundamentals. You look at all these different styles of play, whether it's Andy Roddick in the past or Roger Federer in the past, or we look at Tommy Paul today, other players, they're all doing fundamentally similar things, and how they enter into the forehand is their style, but what they do through the ball is very, very similar, okay? So we're gonna go through a couple fundamental things that you need to do, all right? First of all, make sure that your left hand is involved so that every one of these players, no matter what their style is, they're entering into the forehand with a unit turn where everything is connected. So this is critical that you have this, okay? Because this is going to set up your power and your control on your forehand and give you everything you need at the beginning stage of your forehand shot. In addition to the unit turn preparation, you also have to understand how to use your feet to get into a position where you store energy and have balance and control so that when you execute your swing, that you have complete control over your swing and you can generate power through your body. Very, very important. Next up, you have to understand where your contact points are so you're not guessing. When the ball comes in, you have to know where that contact point is, measurably away from your body in terms of width, and also in terms of depth, because your whole objective is to get through that ideal contact point to be able to control the ball. So you've got to understand where your contact points are. And then finally, you have to understand that the power and control is a unified movement through contact that rotates through the shoulders and you play out through. So your power comes through your shoulder rotation and then that power transfers through your hitting shoulder into a comfortable extension. And then you want to at least get here. We do not want to be playing arms and keeping the upper arm next to the body. We want to rotate and drive. And if you look at the players that are the best models for you on the ATP Tour today, I would look closely at Carlos Alcaraz, whose forehand is ridiculously great, amazing, but it's also very clean and pure. And most of the components of his forehand are a great model for you to follow. It's very simple in many, many ways. And Holger Rune is another player who's got a clean, simple forehand. I would try to model your forehands after those two players and stick to the fundamentals and the basics and really try to get rid of any idea that you're going to be snapping. Yes, there is a lag and there's a natural catch-up, but as a final thought, do not try to snap or release your wrist through contact, not deliberately. If it happens because you're relaxed and it goes through, it will just happen by itself, but it's nothing that you're trying to do intentionally. And then as a final thought, if you struggle with all this, go back to making your forehand as simple as possible because consistency is what's going to help you win more matches. Thanks so much for watching today's video, and I hope that these concepts will help you improve your forehand. Give us a like, subscribe to the channel if you've not done so already, leave your comments down below. And if you're looking to get more information on how to improve your forehand, click in the link in the description down below and get my free mini course on the 5 principles you need to master to achieve a professional quality forehand. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and we'll see you in the next lesson.